All right. Uh, it is 1 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Mountain time, 3 p.m. Central time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Western European time, 10 p.m. Central European time, 11 p.m. Eastern European time, midnight further Eastern European time, and I am live on Facebook. Sorry, I mean on YouTube, obviously. 2 minutes late, I'm sorry about that. But here I am. So before we look at today's story, I want to thank everyone who is here. Uh, I already see there are some people here. 4 people are watching, but right now I can't see who. So write something in the chat if you want. But anyway, the people who are here, well, that's really great because without you, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So thank you very much for being here. I appreciate that a lot. And if you want to support my work, you can send a super chat. Just click the little dollar sign under the chat. All super chats will be read out loud in the live stream. And may God bless everyone who is here. You can also support me through PayPal, Patreon, and by buying merchandise. I will post a few links. One moment. And I see Lars Agerbeck, Joe Mack, J. Cole, and V. Lightning. Hello to all of you. And I'll just go ahead and post a few links now. So I'll post a link. There's my PayPal link. And here is my Patreon link. And you can also visit my website. If you go to my website, you can just click where it says merchandise. And you can, if you click where it says merchandise, you can order merchandise from me. And if there's some merchandise that you think I should have that I haven't got, let me know and maybe I'll be able to arrange that. Joe Max says ABL last night. You're right, I was there last night. I tried to call in. I always got a lot of stuff to talk about. So we should take a look at the stories for today. So I want to start with Gary Oldman. Did you hear his acceptance speech when he was awarded an Oscar for Best Actor? Among other things, Gary Oldman said, quote, "I've lived in America for the longest time, and I am deeply grateful to her for the loves and the friendships I have made, and the many, many wonderful gifts it has given me." Close quote. The audience went silent. Who would have imagined that a British-born actor would be the most patriotic one in Hollywood? Jimmy Kimmel asked people to be political in their speeches, and Oldman chose to thank America. That is just very, very beautiful. So now I really need to watch Darkest Hour, the movie Mr. Oldman played Churchill in. Hey, I should show you my US flag. I think it's, I think that one fits here right now. So here's my US flag. I bought it in Wisconsin in September, I think. I'll put it away again. Yeah, I'll put it over here. I don't have a British flag, but I have a British pillow. But oh, I can't find it right now. Anyway, and I am thinking of going to London in April, so maybe I'll watch Darkest Hour there if it's still on then. But it might be because I think it's a popular movie. Anyway, and also the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, he went to Washington D.C. and met with President Donald Trump. They held a joint press conference 2 days ago. Prime Minister Löfven was the first EU leader to meet with President Trump since the president announced the steel tariffs. The press conference was interesting. I watched it 2 days ago after having finished my live stream on that day. Prime Minister Löfven admitted that Sweden has domestic problems, and he said that Sweden is dealing with them. Löfven claimed that Sweden is getting tougher on crime and terrorism. For Sweden's sake, I hope that is true. Löfven claimed that there are no no-go zones in Sweden, though. That is not true. There are no-go zones in Sweden, obviously, at least according to the Wikipedia definition of a no-go zone. A no-go zone, according to the definition, is an area where you might feel unsafe to enter. Such areas exist in Sweden. There are places in Sweden where I would not film openly. Uh, President Trump mentioned that he had highlighted Sweden a year ago and that he took a little heat for it, but he said that was okay, since he turned out to be right. Trump was polite towards his guest, though, and said that he knows that Sweden will solve its problems. Well, I certainly hope so, Mr. President and Mr. Prime Minister. Uh, let's have a look at the chat. V Lightning says, Swede, is that where you're moving to? Well, yeah, I'm heading for the Midwest. I'm working on it. V Lightning said, I heard the Prime Minister of Sweden lied about everything to Trump. Maybe not everything, but, well, he sounded a lot tougher at the White House than he does in Sweden. I found that interesting. And then also we have this story from the UK. Paul Golding and Jayda Fransen of Britain First were sentenced for hate speech. Golding was sentenced to 18 weeks in jail, and Fransen was sentenced to 36 weeks in jail. So, what was their crime? Some while back, a drunk 16-year-old English girl went into a chicken restaurant to ask for directions. She was then gang raped by 5 men working there, of whom one of them was an illegal alien. These men were let out on bail and were allowed to keep on working in their chicken restaurant, apparently, including the illegal immigrant. Fransen and Golding highlighted this and warned people about these men. For that, they have now been sentenced to jail time. UK, what happened with the British tradition of liberty? What happened to Magna Carta? Why did Britain fight to save Europe from the Nazis? Was it just to bend over to Islam? To become dhimmis or convert to Islam? By the way, the rapists have been sentenced, but the judge who let them out on bail, that judge should be in jail too. Golding and Fransen should not. Actually, I think that the United States should grant Golding and Fransen political asylum. They could give Tommy Robinson political asylum too. Yeah. J. Cole says the Brits are cowards. I think they are suffering from the same kind of cowardice as Canada and Sweden and many other countries. Sadly, that's what I think is going on. Okay, before I talk about the last story here, I'll read this. Lars Agerbeck says he claimed Sweden doesn't have any no-go zones, and Merkel has just admitted that Germany have no-go zones. That made him look like a fool, I think. I agree. I agree completely. So I guess I have to thank Merkel this time, which is odd. And also, there's a new party in Sweden, Alternative for Sweden. I might annoy some of you now, we'll see, but I have looked a little at them. I watched their launch video yesterday. I linked to a subtitled version in the box below, but let me tell you this. Gustav Kasselstrand is chairman of this new party, and I don't trust him. He was kicked out of the Sweden Democrats over disagreements, including being pro-Palestine and anti-Israel. To me, this is a litmus test. So Alternative for Sweden doesn't sound like a good alternative to me. I would rather tell people to vote for the Sweden Democrats, which I tell them anyway. So now there are 15 people in the chat. Thank you all for being here. And well, as I said before, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. So I'm very happy, very grateful about that. Free Tanker says, why did you criticize the new Alternative for Sweden? Your country is in desperate needs. Yes, but Sweden doesn't need anti-Semites. Sweden needs people who defend Western civilization and who understand that Israel is a part of that civilization. That yes, you have to choose between Israel and Palestine, and you have to choose the right side, and the right side is Israel. And so that's why I criticize the new Alternative for Sweden. They could rather just vote for the Sweden Democrats. Or, well, okay, if you're an anti-Semite, you don't want to vote for the Sweden Democrats. But, well, I think they are better. And I'm not very fond of the Sweden Democrats either, actually. I think they're way too leftist when it comes to financial policies. But I'll tell people to vote for them anyway, because The Sweden Democrats have some understanding that Islamic immigration is a bad thing, and they oppose the proposed changes in the constitution. And that's enough for me when all the other 7 parties want to change the constitution. Free Tanker says his stance on Sweden is what matters most. You're not giving him a fair shot. Well, everything's connected to everything. And okay, I'll give you this. If you read Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 through 3, God clearly states that He will bless those who bless Abraham and his seed, and He will curse those who curse it. So if you bless the Jews, you are blessed. If you curse them, you are cursed. So no, I don't want any anti-Israel parties in power in Sweden, and there are already 7 other anti-Israel parties to choose from in parliament. Or I guess the Christian Democrats would object and say they are pro-Israel, and maybe they are, but they are too cowardly, I think. Mr. Super 101 says it is just semantics. No-go zones are English. In Swedish, särskilt utsatta områden. Yeah, but that's kind of the same thing. I mean, to me, because no-go zone, that word is it doesn't have a real definition, or there is a definition of Wikipedia that says that this is an unsafe area. There are areas like that in Sweden. Archidemble says, hi Swede. Well, hello to you too. V Lightning says, well, when you outright lie about your history and your agenda, it doesn't give much faith to the guy. I assume that you mean the Swedish Prime Minister now. I'm not sure who you're referring to. I think right now the Sweden Democrats are the best choice, or maybe the least bad, to put it that way. Free Tanker says, what is the evidence he is anti-Israel? Well, you could Google Gustav Kasselstrand. Yes, I could do that too. But, I mean, I have followed him. I remember when he was kicked out of the Sweden Democrats. Let's see here. There is something in his Wikipedia entry. Oh, here it is. It says, I'll see if this is on English language Wikipedia too. Not really. It's only in the Swedish language. Well, okay. I'll quote. Kasselstrand was 2012 re-elected as chairman of the youth league of the Sweden Democrats. He won against the counter candidate Paula Bieler with the numbers 39-10. Bieler candidated when she meant that the youth wing were too outright in their criticism against the mother party publicly. Bieler was hinting at the article where Kasselstrand and the youth wing's vice chairman William Hane criticized the Sweden Democrats' politics against Israel-Palestine. That's kind of it. I'll post a link since I think Free Tanker is able to read Swedish since he's Danish. Folke JHN says, has the moderates shot themselves in the foot in disregarding SD as potential partner? I think they have. I think that, they have been trying to sound tough for a while, and I think that is a part of a strategy. They want to regain some people who left, who stopped voting for them and started voting for the Sweden Democrats instead. But now that they are saying that they don't want to cooperate with the Sweden Democrats in any way, they will not get these voters back. And when they even support the government's proposed changes of the constitution, to limit free speech in Sweden. I think that won't win them any more voters. I mean, for all I care, the moderates could just fall out completely out of parliament. I don't see any use for them anymore. And take that from me as a former member. I was a member. I even had some minor positions in that party some time ago. Free Tanker says, on his pro-Palestine stance, it would be good for Scandinavia if Palestine got a good state they would want to return to. Do we want the Palestinians here? I'm getting what you're aiming at there, but hey, the country belongs to Israel. That's just the way it is. And the Palestinians were given a state. It's called Jordan. They should have moved them there. So, but the fact is that the neighboring countries to Israel are using the so-called Palestinians, a people that didn't exist until 1968 or something like that. They're using them as a weapon against Israel and against the Jews. It's really all of it is just politics. And these Arab neighbors don't care about their fellow Arabs. They care more about hating the Jews than about helping out, well, their own people, which I guess is an Islamic thing. V Lightning says, what do you think the outcome will be in the next election? I think that the Sweden Democrats might get 30, 32%, something like that. I don't think they will be big enough to be able to form a government or to be a part of a government, because the other parties are going to resist them or, well, oppose them. Maybe the Social Democrats and the moderates will rule together just to stop the Sweden Democrats. And in that case, Sweden really is doomed. So I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. Let's see. Lars Agerbeck says the country belongs to the people who live there. Well, but that doesn't make any sense at all, because there are Jews living in Israel, and there's always been Jews living in Israel. Many of them were in diaspora for almost 2,000 years, but eventually they returned, and everyone knew that the Jews would one day return. And the Palestinians are descendants of invaders and immigrants, so there's never been a Palestine. That's just an Islamic and leftist fantasy they like to hold on to, but there has never been a Palestine and there will never be a Palestine. But I think they gave them Jordan. They could have moved there. V Lightning says, I believe the Palestinians sold the land to Israel way back. Well, that happened too. When Jews started returning to the Holy Land before the state of Israel was established, they were buying land from Arabs living there. Some of them were Muslims, some of them were Christians. By the way, if you're a Christian Arab, it's much easier for you to live in Israel proper than in Palestine these days. I guess I should have known that I would start a fuss over this, but you know, I can't sympathize with a party with I can't sympathize with a party who has Gustav Kasselstrand as its chairman. That sort of sets me off immediately. Free Tanker says, you're right on Palestine. We have to be realistic. Skåne is a Danish territory we will never get back. We have to work in the current time. You should put Swedish grievances over foreign ones. Well, okay, then let's look at the map then. Let's say Skåne won't become Danish because the map is what it is these days. Well, it's the same thing with Israel. Israel is an established country now, and they are not going anywhere. So, Palestinians, the Arab neighbors should take them in. Jordan, whoever, they should be taken in by Arab and Islamic countries. Period. because yeah, the problem really is Islam, and I guess that's why they prefer to live in Sweden or Denmark. We Lightning says same thing with the Sami. Well, the Sami live up in the north of of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and parts of Russia. But there was never a Sami state, so to speak. Um, and The Sami wasn't given the country by God, not the way that the Israelites were given Israel. So there's a difference there. But I have nothing against Sami. I am absolutely fine with the Sami living where they live, or living wherever they want to live. And I'm all for that Sami should be a recognized minority in Sweden and Norway and Finland, and I think they should be in Russia too. But that's Russia's issue. Free Tanker says yes, but is Israel more important than Sweden? Well, Sweden needs to choose its allies, and Sweden should be allied with Israel because both countries are or should be Western. So you can't really put them against each other in that way. Without the Jews, there wouldn't be any Western civilization. As Jesus said, we got salvation comes from the Jews, and the Western civilization is Christian in its nature and Jewish in its heritage. Add to that a little Greek and Roman, and then the Anglo-American tradition of liberty. But really, that's where it starts. Archie Demble says probably the Palestinian will be wiped out by Jewish soldiers. Well, not really. I mean, if they attack Israel, Israel responds, but Israel isn't committing any kind of illegal acts, even though the UN likes to claim so, and all these organizations run by leftists and Muslims. But no, not really. So there are 19 people in here right now, which is nice. Uh, Thank you very much for being here. And let's see. Uh, Edgar SSK says, "What do you think about angry foreigner insulting Peter Sweden?" I think that was uncalled for, unnecessary, unfair, and exaggerated. And I mean, I've been watching both of them for a while, and Peter Sweden, I was a little cautious about him, uh, but it seems like Peter Sweden had some opinions before that I didn't really like, but it seems like he left these. It seems like he left these ideas. So I think Angry Foreigner's attack was really uncalled for. V Lightning says all countries are important, but with the world changing, it makes it hard to keep a specific culture, uh, especially when it's being weeded out by immigration. That happens. Folke N says if Israel laid down arms, there would be no Israel. If Palestine laid down arms, they would both exist. Is that correct? Yes. If Palestine laid down arms, there would be peace. Free Tanker says, I'll address this since this is interesting. Sure, but Swedes were Odinists once and wrote with runes. They existed before Christendom. Is our Nordic heritage meaningless? No, all heritage is of course important, but our Nordic ancestors, Swedes, Danes, Norwegians, wherever, before they were christened or Christianized, they were savages. Really, the Vikings were horrible savages who went around Europe raping and looting and stealing and did all kinds of horrible things. Then they started going to church and they became civilized. And that's how Western civilization reached, for instance, Sweden and Denmark, because no one was able to actually beat these savages. But when they converted to Christianity, they started behaving like civilized people. This is also why I say it's not about ethnicity or race, it's about culture. When they became a part of a Christian culture, they became civilized people. that can happen to any people who accepts the gospel, really. But your heritage is important. But to become civilized, really, I think you actually have to accept the gospel, really. Kain Vi Victor says, I want UN to move to Europe. I don't want USA to protect it anymore. Oh, I agree completely. Or they can move to Canada or to Sweden or to Saudi Arabia. For all I care, but I think that the US should leave the UN, and then they could kick out the UN from the US. Just evict them. They can. I'm sure Trudeau would be happy to take them. V Lightning says, but the Vikings were the first white people in America, smart enough to know that you can't discover a country that is already inhabited. Well, sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Vikings were, as far as I know, the first Europeans to enter America. And I don't know if they claim to have discovered it since there were people already living there. So Summer Love 217 says, yes, end the UN. Yeah, I think the UN should be ended. I don't see any. I don't see that the UN is doing something positive. I could be wrong, but I don't see the point in that organization. Just like I want the EU to end. So it will be interesting to see what happens in Italy now. With I heard that they have a hung parliament, so we'll see what happens. But if the five-star movement is, or if they are able to form a government, I don't know how far they have gotten because I haven't had time to look into that today. But if Italy decides to leave the EU, and Britain is leaving too, that would be interesting because that would be two pretty large countries leaving the EU. I would love that. Free Tanker says, yeah, angry foreigners acting like a total social justice warrior. There were a lot of things with that video that I didn't like. He compared Sweden to the United States, claiming that Sweden is so much safer. He forgot to mention that violence in the United States is concentrated to some larger cities, to specific areas, usually run by the Democrats, by the way. And while America has, in general, been getting safer for the last few decades, Sweden has been getting less safe. Then also he attacked Peter Sweden's faith and compared being a young Earth creationist, a Christian young Earth creationist. He compared that to being an Islamist, which is stupid because it's not about how old you think Earth is. It's about what kind of ideas you have. And in that way, maybe a young Earth Islamist and a young Earth Christian would agree roughly on the age of planet Earth. Fine, absolutely. But there's so much. The important things is what they would disagree on, and he's not getting that, or he doesn't want to get it. So I was really disappointed to see that video. And he did bring up Peter Sweden's past, that Peter Sweden was an anti-Semite, and I guess he was. He says he isn't anymore. And I mean, I don't know Peter Sweden personally, so I can't judge on that. But from what I've seen in his channel lately, I don't think he is anymore, at least. And he has been taking some heat in the comment field for for saying things that some of his hardline anti-Semitic followers don't like. So I have to stand on Peter Sweden's side here. I still want him to talk to me though, but we'll see. That would be great. Let's see. V Lightning says they basically report on similar things, which makes Angry Foreigner look like a complete jealous idiot. Yeah, and I don't understand why, because Angry Foreigner still has a lot more subscribers than Peter Sweden have. Still, Summer Love 217 says, my friend and I have cancelled my trip to Sweden. We are both of Swedish descent and want to go to the country of our heritage, but feel it's not safe. Well, it depends on where in Sweden you go. And that might be difficult to tell in advance, of course, because what's happened in Sweden is that a lot of migrants have come not only to the larger cities, but now also to smaller places. So I don't really know what to say. I understand you completely. I go to Sweden sometimes because I kind of have to. Sometimes because of family living in Sweden, and sometimes because, well, it goes with the territory. It kind of goes with my line of work. Like when I went to Gothenburg in November to cover the, what do you call it? Uh, to cover the EU summit in Gothenburg. But well, but so okay, Gothenburg was nice, but I prefer going other places. Like I'm going to Poland in 1 week from today. Uh, I'm going to Gdansk. Uh, I will probably not live stream Thursday next week, but I will live stream Saturday next week. I mean, I assume so at least. Uh, yeah, yeah. I can't really comment. I see there's a discussion on the safety in Sweden. Uh, what I have noticed living in Norway, visiting Sweden, visiting parts of America, what I have noticed is that in America they are more security minded than they are in Scandinavia. Uh, like for instance, there is a shopping mall in Oslo. I was there with my American guests in November, and there were gangs hanging out at the shopping mall. And my American guests were shocked and said that where they come from, there would be security guards who would break these groups up so they wouldn't stand there and look threatening. Things like that. And sure, I agree that, for instance, I wouldn't want to go to certain parts of Chicago, but if you go to small town Wisconsin or even medium sized town Wisconsin, maybe not Milwaukee, I don't know, but other parts of Wisconsin, it seems to be safer than both Sweden and Norway to me, from what I've seen. Free Tanker says, I traveled Skåne in Sweden and it is lovely. However, the country is in trouble in the long run. Yeah, and I think the long run is, well, it's the decay of Sweden, or whatever you want to call it. It kind of goes faster and faster. I moved from Sweden to Norway in 2006. And in 2006, there were still no cars burning, there were no hand grenades, there were no one throwing rocks at policemen and firefighters. None of that stuff happened in 2006. It happened in France in 2005, and people said that, but that won't happen in Sweden because in Sweden we are nice to people, not like those nasty French people. But then it started happening to Sweden too, maybe around 2011, 2012. There were riots in Sweden. That could have been 2012. V Lightning says, so why did you move to Norway, Swede? I moved to Norway in 2006. Well, basically, I was looking for a job or a better job. I had a job in the town I was living in Sweden, but well, there were some problems with that job, and they were downsizing, so you couldn't really get full time anymore. So I was looking around for other jobs, and I ended up thinking maybe I should go to Oslo, Norway, and check and try it there instead. And that was 12 years ago, and I'm still here. But I don't think I will be here for another 12 years, though. V Lightning says the Germans who were visiting Sweden were the only ones we had problems with. So rude. What can I say? I have been told that German tourists often have an attitude problem. I don't know why, but that's I've been told that, which is uh, which is sad because whether you're a tourist, an immigrant, or whatever you are, in one way you are representing your people when you go abroad, which means you should be on your best behavior. You don't need to be a saint, but you need to think about what you say and do, because you don't want people to get a bad impression of you, and you don't want Well, you don't want to give your people a bad name. V Lightning says, not all are like that. My friend and her family are wonderful people and far from feminist ideas. Oh, I think that's a response to Free Tanker, who says, Swedish girls are so hot for the country's good. Swedish men just had to put up with their feminist nonsense, which ruined Sweden. I think there are certain areas or certain circles in Sweden where there's a lot of that stuff. But I think most Swedes, actually, I don't think most Swedes are that politically correct, but I think the problem with Sweden, as I always say, is the conformism. And a part of this conformism is everyone doesn't necessarily have the same opinion, but they pretend to. And if they disagree, they are quiet. The silent majority in Sweden, if there is a silent majority, well, it's really, really silent. And that's my problem with it, because that means that the few people in Sweden who speak up are going to have to pay very much, very dearly for doing so. The social cost of not keeping your mouth shut is higher. The fewer people who speaks up. I mean, that kind of speaks for itself. Summer Love 217 says, I am an old school feminist but do not agree with American or Swedish feminists of today. I can respect that opinion. And I can see there was a conflict in Sweden a few weeks ago, maybe even, oh, time flies, maybe even a few months ago. And the conflict was between one of these old school feminists and the newer feminists, because these old school feminists held the opinion that there are actual biological difference between men and women, including the way our minds work. So of course she was called all kinds of nasty stuff by these new people who are like, no, that's all. It's just a social construct. Let's see. Tyron Tuitele says, "Hey Swede, what are some Swedish dishes that you would recommend? My sister plans on visiting Norway and Sweden later this year, and I would like to familiarize myself with the food." Well, it depends, but well, of course, the obvious one is mashed potatoes and meatballs. And if you want a funny cake, you can ask for smörgåstårta, sandwich cake. I guess it would be in if you translate it directly. Free Tanker says, Angry Foreigner is a beta social justice warrior. Peter Sweden is nevertheless sensationalistic. Well, I agree that Peter Sweden can sometimes be, or he is more alarmist, or he's more emotional than I am. I don't play that much on emotions. I think there are one or two videos where I might have done that because I was, well, angry. But usually I just want the facts, and then I can analyze the facts. Uh, Summer Love 217 says, "You are making me miss my farmor." Oh, your farmor was Swedish. Oh, farmor means grandmother, by the way, for those who doesn't already know that. Uh, v Lightning says, "Well, I do like the equality, just not the belittling." Well, I am all for the same legal rights. That if you're a man or a woman shouldn't matter when it comes to your relationship to the government. I mean legally. But I guess I'm against women priesthood, so I don't think I would be accepted even by the old school feminists. But I think that the church should be free to decide themselves who they want to hire. Anyway, Tyron Tuitele says, "Thanks, Swede. I'll give it a shot." Yeah, and I'm not sure where you live, but I know that they sell Scandinavian cookbooks in parts of America. Oh, right. Uh, yeah, it seems like this conflict between Peter Sweden and Angry Foreigner, it just won't go away. I think they both said their part. I haven't seen anything new on that, and I haven't made any official comments on it more than people keep asking me in the live streams, so I comment on it here. But apart from that, I haven't said one thing or the other about it officially. Although I am more sympathetic towards Peter Sweden than towards Angry Foreigner in this case because I think his attack was exaggerated. But I would agree that Peter Sweden is more emotional, sure. But Angry Foreigner did some of that stuff himself too. So what can you say? Real Lightning says Angry Foreigner is pretty much an alcoholic. I don't think he thinks about what he says logically. Well, of course, I don't know that, but I have noticed that he tends to be drinking beer in his videos. I I usually avoid drinking alcohol while making videos because to me it doesn't sound like a good idea. It's like someone asked me a few weeks ago what I was drinking while live streaming, and I was having Norwegian fizzy water, and they asked, well, I can think it was a joke, but the question was whether it was something alcoholic, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to drink in live stream. I think it's a bad idea. Uh, Free Tanker says Swede speaks. You should side with Peter. Oh, if I wasn't clear enough here, I am siding with Peter Sweden. Tyron Tuitele says, I live in Washington State in the US. I'll be sure to grab a Scandinavian cookbook. Yeah, I guess you can ask for one at Barnes and Nobles or something. I don't know who has them. I know my American fiance has one. I don't remember where she bought it. Uh, but I intend to visit every US state, but that might take 25 years or something. Uh, but yeah, and I intend to visit every European capital too. I might have to think about whether that's safe or not. We'll see. Actually, yeah, Moscow could be a problem. I might have to be very discreet if I go to Russia. So we are. There are 21 people here now. I've been online for 40 minutes, and thank you all for being here. There are some new people arriving in the chat, and I'm happy about that. So, so I'll tell you again, if you want to support what I do, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm very, very grateful about that. So if you want to support what I do, you can click the super chat, the little dollar sign under the chat. I will read out all super chats in in the in the live stream. I might, of course, read out other stuff too, but I will read out all the super chats. If you write something really crazy, I will thank you for the donation, and that's kind of it. But normally, I will read out all. And and also, you can support me through PayPal and through Patreon. And there are links in the box below. I can post a few links too. I'll respond to something before I do that. Denise T says, after you marry, will you move to the USA? Yes, that's the plan. Uh, I am looking into different visa opportunities, so hopefully I will be there before I am married. Tyrone to a oh, okay. Uh, okay, I will post a few links again. Let's see. I'll post my PayPal link. And also, you can support me through Patreon, and you can visit my website. And if you go to my website, if you want to support me through it, you can just click where it says merchandise, and you can order some of my merchandise, that would be great. I know people are asking about more merchandise, things I haven't got yet, so you might give me a few ideas about what I could do. Uh, and also, there are ways to support me listed on my website. So I've given you this sort of mid now. So now I'll go back to here. Uh, oh, I see. There's I see. I've got kind of an angry thorn in the Peter Sweden fraction in here. I'm none of these guys. I'm not Peter Sweden and I'm not Angry Foreigner. Uh, but I I will have to side with Peter Sweden, even though I agree that Peter Sweden is sometimes alarmist. But I think Peter Sweden is right about most of the stuff he says. Although I am more careful about putting references under my videos so people can check for themselves where I got my stuff. And David Norton just sent me 200 Swedish kroner. So thank you very much for your generous donation. I'm very grateful about that. Uh, but I think Angry Foreigner has done a lot of good stuff too. So I'm not saying he's wrong on everything. He has done a lot of good stuff, and he sometimes makes good and valid points about things going on in Sweden. It's just that when it comes to his attack on Peter Sweden, I have to side with Peter Sweden. I just have to because, well, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Or I'm not really sorry, but that's the way it is. Um, so since there are some people in here now, the numbers are going kind of up and down. So the people who are here now, I could ask you. Uh, I used to ask this question every now and I see that some of the people who come here are kind of regulars by now, and there are some people who I see here sometimes and sometimes not. So I guess today I could ask you first of all, if this is your first time here, how did you find this live stream? And if you have been here before, what makes you come back to the live stream? What do you want me to talk about or to do in the live stream? So I'll throw that out there and see if I get any reactions to that. And if anyone wonders, I intend to stay on for another 40 minutes. Uh, I'll comment a little on this discussion going on here. Kain Victi says, Free Tanker, are you saying Angry Foreigner is not a Swede because of his background or is not allowed to criticize other Swedes? I don't know what Free Tanker says. I would say this. Angry Foreigner is a Swedish citizen, as far as I know. So, well, he is a Swede, in a legal sense at least. Not ethnic Swede, but he's a Swedish citizen. And of course, he has the right to criticize whoever he wants, including making stupid attacks. I don't agree with Angry Foreigner's attack on Peter Sweden, but I think he had the right to do so. And Peter Sweden has the right to respond, and I have the right to pick sides. That's my take on that. But I think he is a legal resident in Sweden, even if he wouldn't be a Swedish citizen, but I think he is one. I still think he should have the right to say whatever he wants, as long as he's not inciting to violence. That's my position there. Joe Max says to hear your views. Okay, good. I'm happy about that. And I would be happy to talk to Angry Foreigner or to Peter Sweden or to both of them. If any one of them contacted me and wanted to talk to me, I would be happy to do so. Absolutely. Summer Love 217 says legal. Maybe that's the limit. Uh, I guess you're referring to being a legal resident. Uh, I think if you're a legal resident of a country, you should have basically the same rights as a citizen. Well, with a few exceptions. You to get to be allowed to vote, you need to be a citizen, and I think that's just the way it is and should be. You don't have to be a citizen to vote in local elections in Sweden. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. That could be discussed. But to vote in the general election to parliament, you have to be a citizen. I think it should stay that way. V Lightning says, is Sweden still letting in migrants by the droves? I think the numbers have dropped. but Sweden is still taking in far too many migrants. And the problem here is that Sweden is trying to persuade other European countries to take what Sweden calls their fair share. I don't think that the other European countries should help Sweden out. I think they should do what Poland is doing because, well, no one needs to. No one. I mean, Sweden should just do the same thing as Poland. But anyway, uh, on Tyron Tuitele, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you very much for your donation, and keep. Tyron Tuitele says, "Keep up the good work." Sending me a super chat of $2. Thank you very much. I appreciate your super chat a lot. Summer Love 217 says Poland is right. Yes, I mean there might be things I could disagree with Poland or Polish people on, but when it comes to what Poland thinks about migration policies, I agree with them. We'll see what I say once I have been to Poland. That will be interesting. David Norton says your site was suggested from Peter Sweden's site. Oh, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Uh, so I guess YouTube are kind of connecting me and Peter Sweden. They think we're doing kind of the same thing then. So that's good. Uh, Free Tanker says, I think you're reasonable, normal, genuine, and few Scandinavian do this, so I appreciate you. Thank you very much for the kind words. V Lightning says, yep, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Czech Republic. V4, Visegrad. Yes, yes. Basically, I agree with these countries. Of course, there might be some smaller, some. I mean, you always have some issues, and I guess I will be in Poland for 4 days. Maybe I will get to see what I would disagree with them on too. But still, hopefully, I'll be able to meet with some people in Poland too. I hope so. We'll see. Uh, we'll see if I am able to go to Warsaw maybe on Sunday that week. I'm not sure. There is a conference on Friday and Saturday that I'm part of, so those days I have to stay in Gdansk at least. When it comes to Sunday, I'll go to an evangelical church in Gdansk, and then I'll try to figure out if I'm staying in Gdansk or if I'm going to Warsaw or something. I don't know. But I will try to interview some of the other people in that conference. They will mainly be Norwegians, but well, I can interview Norwegians in Poland. That could be interesting too. And I only met one of them before, as far as I know. V Lightning says, yes, you should get with Peter Swede. Yes, yes, absolutely. I have told him more than once that I would like to talk to him, so the ball in his court now. But if anyone else in this chat is also commenting on his videos or on his live streams, he haven't had one for a while, but he had before. Anyway, if any one of you are in touch with him, just tell him he should check me out. Maybe he has, I don't know. I know that when I made my Civil War in Sweden video, he made one just a few days later. And the interesting thing actually is, first I made Civil War in Sweden. Then Peter Sweden, 2 or 3 days later, made Civil War imminent in Sweden, question mark. And then Angry Foreigner attacked Peter Sweden for that video. So maybe I am partial to blame for that conflict, who knows? Tyron Tuatele says, you were pronouncing my name right. Good to know. I came across you on Anthony Brian Logan's live stream. He suggested that I check out your channel. You have a new subscriber. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Tyron also says, we don't hear that much from other countries around the world, just small snippets on TV. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot from my American subscribers, that I'm kind of their source on Europe, which I am happy to be. Truth Conquer says, thank you for what you do. Well, thank you for the kind words. V Lightning says, true. Unfortunately, you ran into another American. Oh, you're okay. I see. Summer Love says, I know you from ABL too. I think there are some people I need to thank for my channel's growth. Anthony Brian Logan is one of these people. And I used to thank President Trump too. You know, I retweet him more or less every day. I'm hoping he will read one of these tweets one day. But anyway, because the first video I made that went really viral was when I made a video about riots in Rinkeby and Trump's comments. Yeah. V Lightning says, "What's ABL?" ABL stands for Anthony Brian Logan, and that's a Black American conservative YouTuber, commentator on news and politics. I like him and his perspective. That's why I keep on calling into his show too. Summer Love 217 says, "Do you speak Norwegian or are you able to get by?" I know the words in Norwegian. My pronunciation will be horribly Swedish though. So I can speak Norwegian words pronounced in Swedish. That's kind of what happens. Uh, so I say I speak svorsk, which is you mix together Swedish and Norwegian. Swedish is svensk or svenska, and Norwegian is norsk. You get svorsk. It's kind of a mixed language. I notice sometimes when I am in Sweden that I start looking for words because I'm used to the Norwegian words. So sometimes I have a difficulty separating the languages. They are a little too close to each other. Joe Max says, "Yes, you're our info in the UK." Oh, all right. So Joe Mac, you're in the UK, and I'm your info on Scandinavia or something like that. Oh, that's good to know. Uh, mm, Archie Demble says, "Have seen that movie about that nice immigrant who asked the Swedish woman for the seats in the bus?" Yeah, sadly, I saw that too. Well, it's gone viral, and it's uh, it's horrible, and at the same time, I think a lot of men are cowards. At the same time, someone mentioned you don't know if this guy is armed. He might be carrying a knife or something. And I'm like, yeah, you're right about that. So I don't know. I mean, I hope I would have stood up to this guy and told him to just stop that stupidity. Maybe I would, because sometimes I can be pretty not emotional. The other word. Well, sometimes I do things, but at the same time, I don't want to be attacked with a knife. So I don't know. Uh, Christopher Robin says, "Hello and shalom, you all." Well, hello and shalom to you too. Uh, oh, Yo Mac says, "I'm in the USA." Okay, you mean I'm your source on the UK too? Yeah, well, the UK is one of my is my second largest audience, so I keep an eye on the UK too, and I guess I should keep a closer look closer also on Italy now. I try to look at sort of all of Europe, but well, the day only have 24 hours, and I need to sleep sometimes. Christopher Robbins says, "Sweden unfortunately is well on its way to becoming a Sharia compliant Islamic state." Yeah, that's a big problem. And the problem is that Swedes are, in general, of course, not all Swedes, but in general, Swedes are very conformist, which means that people will keep quiet about it. They won't really fight it, or at least not more than say a few angry words at their computer screens or behind their TV. And I think that's sad. I think this is happening all over the West, but I think Sweden might be a candidate for being the first Western country that turns into an Islamic state, and that would be really, really sorry. Tyron Tuitela says, "Swede, you and Paul Joseph Watson are my sources for European affairs." Okay, that's nice to be compared to Paul Joseph Watson. I watch him too. Well, whenever I have the time for it, of course, but he's one of my sources. V Lightning says, "The problem is Europe in general is allowing Islam to dictate to them how to live." Yeah, that's the problem. And I'm not getting, for instance, when it comes to the UK, because you could say Sweden. Sweden was neutral during World War II. However, you can be neutral in a conflict between good and evil, but Sweden was. So, and then Sweden was neutral during the Cold War. In Sweden, the theory was that the United States and the Soviet Union were equally good or equally bad. And now Sweden doesn't want to take a stand towards Islam. I'm seeing that there is something just go repeating itself in Sweden. What I don't get is a country like the UK, a country that actually fought not well Nazi Germany. Why why are they bending over to Islam? That's the part I'm not getting. Hilton 11,000 says, same thing here in Wales. I had to find out what was happening in Sweden, and I found your channel. I used to watch someone called So What, but his channel was blocked by YouTube, but he's back. Oh, okay. I don't know who So What is, but okay. Yeah, there's a lot of all this stuff going on with YouTube. That's why I keep my Minds channel too, even though I don't have many followers on Minds, but still, my Minds channel is kind of my backup. Summer Love 217 says, true, Islam will take a stand against Sweden. Yeah, well, it will, but Sweden just doesn't want to take a stand against Islam. And I think Sweden should. Uh, really. Uh, but that means Sweden needs to grow a spine. Sweden needs a leader who will say that it is not just about differing opinions. The good and evil actually exists. And with all its faults, we think Western civilization is basically good and Islam is basically bad. That's what it should say. But maybe if the Sweden Democrats were in power, maybe they would say something like that. I think Jimmy Åkesson, he understands this. I don't know him personally either, but I think he understands this. Some of the people in that party might not, but I think he does. V Lightning says, eventually, because of Jante law, the Swedes will be overrun. Yes, I think so. And also, what's also been happening with Sweden is that people are leaving the country, and the people who leave the country are usually the people who are productive. Well, people who actually are able to get things done. But they leave Sweden and go to the United States. They used to go to Canada and Britain and to Australia. I don't know about now, but there are Swedes leaving Sweden for other countries where they are paid better for their services. So what happens is that the people who are an asset to the economy are gone, and you will only have people who drain the economy left. I will address this question, although I'm kind of tired of it, but I'll do it anyway. Free Tanker says, what's your opinion of Barbara Lerner Specter? Okay, let's put it this way. As an individual, I of course strongly disagree with Barbara Lerner Specter and her ideas, and I think she should be fought, and I think that she shouldn't be listened to. I know that a lot of people use her to make some kind of case that the Jews are behind Islamic immigration, non-Western immigration, or whatever their beef is, and I don't agree with that. Well, with that view, I mean I don't agree with that theory because when it comes to Jews, practicing Jews are usually pretty conservative. They vote conservative, while non-practicing Jews are usually pretty liberal. So the more Jewish a Jewish person is, the better they are. The more right they are politically. So opposing Jews the way I know people use Barbara Lerner Specter, because a lot of people use her as an example of that. I don't like that. But to talk about her as an individual, I would say I oppose her ideas. Uh, let's see. Wildflower Jess says, okay, she says, ha, Tyrant you tell her, haha, yes I did. This is actually my first live stream from Swede Speaks. I'm new to his channel. Uh, well, thank you for being here, Wildflower Jess. So I guess I could ask you what brought you here, but I might have an idea about that because I think I recognize your name from last night in ABL's chat. Christopher Robbins says, I'm a Messianic Jew. That's a Jew who believes in Yeshua, Jesus, as the Messiah. Oh, great. Yeah, I know there are a few, at least some Messianic Jews in Israel. There are some in the United States. Uh, there might be some in Sweden too. I don't know. Maybe. Uh, but well, I'm very happy. I'm very happy to meet a Messianic Jew. That's great. Wildflower Yes says, no problem, Swede. Swede speaks. I love your content. I'm a Christian myself. Oh, good to know. That's wonderful. Uh, Summer Love 217 says, use for Jesus. Yeah, yeah. I think that's wonderful because I think, and I might be wrong here, but I think many many Jews have a problem accepting Jesus, or I mean that's obviously the case. Many Jews have a problem accepting Jesus as their savior and are still waiting for Messiah. Messianic Jews are the ones who realize that Jesus is their Messiah, as he is the savior of all mankind. That Messiah has already been here and he is coming back. And I think that the way the Christian Church historically have treated Jews have put a lot of them off and made them anti-Christian. I mean, I'm not saying that because you should look at Christ, not the Christians, as I say. But I think there's some of that stuff have been going on, and that's very unfortunate. But well, the better it is that there actually are Jews who are accepting Jesus Christ or Yeshua Hamashiach. I think his name is in Hebrew. Anyway, as Messiah, I think that's great. Uh, let's see. So there's about 20 minutes. I'll stay here for about 20 minutes, but I guess I should find today's funny story. Oh, I've got it here already. I'll just find it. Let's see where I put it. Oh, here it is. Uh, and the Danes in here might have seen it. Uh, so the story is the sketch about Sweden that all of Denmark is laughing, laughing over right now. Uh, I guess I could read it out to you. About the Danes, they like to joke about Sweden, and let's see. So they made a sketch about political correctness in Sweden. I'll post a link later, uh, but it goes something like this. There's a Danish crime investigator who shows up at the crime scene in Sweden. I assume it's in Malmö, in Skåne, which is right by the border to Denmark. And he asks for the leader of the crime scene investigation. The Dane does this, and a Swedish girl or Swedish woman says, "Well, that she's in charge." And the Dane says he'll tell the Danish chief of police, and he says there's some woman, or he uses kind of a slur there. And let's see. If we can. Yeah, he says, I'm from the Copenhagen police, and here's the victim. And the witness saw the perpetrator escape, and in Danish, perpetrator is gärningsman. In Swedish is gärningsman. It ends with man. That's a part of the point. So now the Swedish police objects and says perpetrator person, gärningspersonen. So the Dane goes on to say that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the perpetrator is male or female. The word just happens to be gärningsmand in Danish, even if it would have been a woman who did it. And then he says, but anyway, here's the victim, this woman, and she says, well, you can't say it's a woman. And he points at her and he says, well, she's got breasts. It's obviously a woman. And then he is getting arrested by the Swedish police, and he says, what? Did I do something illegal? You're not allowed to say breasts in Sweden? No, absolutely not. That's completely inappropriate. I'll post a link. I know most of you won't be able to get this, but well, the Danes and Swedes in here, you'll get this. I will post it after I'm done with this live stream. I will post it in the box below too. Let's see. Bill B says hello everyone. Well, hello to you too, Bill. Well, yeah, you seem to have this tendency of showing up right before I leave, but I'll stay here for maybe 10-15 more minutes. I am noticing there is kind of I guess there is an identitarian civil nationalist debate going on in the chat. I'm not going to read out all the everything that's said about that, but I think you know or should know by now that if I'm anything there, I'm a civic nationalist. I think that we need countries like the United States. The United States was not a country of immigrants. It was, is, and should be a country of citizens. And the same thing should be true about all countries. And of course, every country have the right to decide its own immigration policies. Of course. Tyrone Tuiteli says, a Swede speaks, have you always been a Christian? No, I grew up as an atheist. I became a Christian, well, when I was 31. You could say I was saved when I was 31. Then I had a period of a few years when I had my walk in the spiritual desert, but eventually I returned back to Christ. So I have been a Christian for a little more than 4 years consistently. Pretty much close to 4 years now, because it was around Easter 2014 I kind of decided that I should try again. Wee Lightning says, hey Swede, what happened to the police station that had been hand grenaded? Did they move? I don't think they have moved yet, but they have talked about moving, claiming that the area just isn't safe for them. My response to that is, so okay, the Malmö police thinks that certain parts of Malmö is not safe for them to have a police station. So what about the people living there? So actually, when Stefan Löfven, the Prime Minister of Sweden, is in Washington D.C. and claims there are no no-go zones in Sweden, well, apparently the Malmö police thinks that the part of Malmö is a no-go zone. Wildflower Yes says, I dated a Norwegian dude. He was a pagan. From what I know, most Nordics are atheists or pagans. I think most people in the Nordic countries are pretty atheist. Or, I mean, there are a lot of people who would say that they believe in God or they believe in something, but they don't really know what. Being a conservative Christian is really odd in this part of the world. There are some conservative Christians in Norway. There are some in Sweden too. I think there are more of us in Norway, but you are still part of a small minority, and you will have to count on being considered crazy. I mean, that was the part of Angry Foreigner's attack on Peter Sweden. Uh, that A part of that attack was that he attacked Peter Sweden for being a young Earth creationist, a Christian young Earth creationist, and compared him to being an Islamist, which I found completely stupid. But that's the that's the way. I mean, in that sense, Angry Foreigner really is Swedish because he has adopted an atheist mindset. And Angry Foreigner has a Muslim background, but he is, as far as I know, he is not a practicing Muslim at all. Uh, I, I I think he. I don't know if he's a paganist or an atheist. Probably an atheist. Taron Tuatelis says, "Are you familiar with a YouTuber named Styxhammer?" Uh, yeah, I think it's Styx Hexenhammer. His videos are usually what is going on in politics and stuff, but he himself was an atheist at one time. I thought he still was. Well, he was. I think he was Satanist before, and then he turned atheist, but I don't know. Uh, Summer Love 217 says, "My farfar, that's grandmother and grandfather, were Christians and from a long line of Christians from Sweden and one side from Norway. Many of the believers in Scandinavia actually left Sweden and Norway and went to America. And a part of this was because, well, you weren't allowed to hold prayer meter. For instance, in Sweden, there was a law that said that that you weren't allowed to have prayer meetings outside the Church of Sweden. They didn't want people to get, I guess, what they thought were crazy ideas by studying the Bible on their own or without doing this within the confinement of the Church of Sweden, telling them how to interpret the Bible. Uh, V Lightning says, "Good talking to everyone. Talk to you later, Swede." Absolutely. Talk to you later too, V Lightning. Free Tanker says, "Swede speaks the Bosnian refugees from the 90s were not real refugees." I don't think I need to get into that. I mean, it doesn't really matter uh, in this case. Many of the Bosnians are pretty secular, although I know that there's radicalization going on in Bosnia too now, and I think Saudi Arabia is funding mosques there. However, however, Angry Foreigner is a Swedish citizen and he's a legal resident in Sweden. I think he should be allowed to say whatever he wants, even when he says things that I think are stupid. I guess I'm siding with Angry Foreigner in his right to say stupid stuff, but I'm siding against it in what he actually said. I'm siding with Peter Sweden on what Angry Foreigner actually said. And as far as I know, Peter Sweden is not in favor of an ethno state either anymore. I could be wrong there, but I mean I think there's an idea about ethno states that's appealing to many Europeans, especially maybe. I'm saying maybe now. Maybe if you haven't studied history enough, it might be easier to have to find this appealing. But we're really all a mix of a lot of different stuff. I mean, obviously, I am mostly European. According to DNA, I'm 100% European. But on the other hand, my Y chromosome DNA is Eastern. They think it evolved in China some 2,000 years ago. So my male line ancestor was apparently Chinese, and and then it went west to Finland and eventually to me. Anyway, uh, so well, there's always been minorities in all countries, so I'm not against that. But what is needed is I'm in favor of melting pot societies rather than multiculturalism. For instance, the United States used to be a melting pot society, and that was working pretty well. You could come to the US as a Swede or a Dane, uh, and or an Italian or whatever, and then you turned into American. Kind Victor says, I always thought you looked a little Chinese. Lol, just a joke. Well, yeah, I don't know, but I have the high cheekbones, which I think of as a Finnish trait. Summer Love 217 says, my farmor came to the USA and was a practicing devout Christian. Then she adds farfar too. So both are your grandparents. That's great. Uh, let's see. Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you know where in Sweden they came from? Free Tanker says, I'm also part black, by the way. That's interesting. Are you descended from the slaves that showed up in Denmark? Or because Denmark had a colony in somewhere in the Caribbean? I don't remember which island. Was it some the British Virgin Islands? Wasn't there a Danish Virgin Islands? It was somewhere in that neighborhood. And some of these people moved to Denmark because since they lived in a Danish colony, they could move to Denmark, and some of them stayed. So there are people in Denmark today descended from from these people from the Danish colonies. Wildflower Yes says, my father is from Hungary. He's Roman Catholic. My mother was a devout Christian, but it worked for them. It was weird. Okay. Oh yeah, Alleluia showed up in the chat. Well, welcome to you. Well, I'm about to. Okay, I'll stay for a few more minutes. Wendy Dodd says, I like when you talk about melting pot. I used to hear that a lot when I was a kid, but not at all now. Yes, what I would like to say about that is, I think that these identitarian politics they started on the left. The left started with their identity politics, and then the so-called right reacted to that and started doing identity politics too. And I don't like identity politics on any side of the political spectrum. I think you shouldn't do it. What we need to focus on is civilization, culture, citizenship, stuff like that. If you're black or white or brown or yellow or whatever, I don't care. I don't care about the color of your skin, but I care about your ideology. I care about what kind of ideas you bring with you. And I mean, if I get to choose between allowing Kenyan Christians or Bosnian Muslims to move to Sweden, I would root for the Kenyan Christians, especially now since Bosnian Muslims are getting radicalized. Tyron Tuitelli asks, "Do you have a particular denomination?" I think you could call me. Well, I used to say I'm evangelical, so let's go with that. I'm getting thumbs up from Kai and Victus. Well, thank you. And Wildflower Yes says, I'm a mutt, half Brazilian, half Hungarian. Yeah, I guess Brazilian. That could be a mix of sort of everything. Brazil really was a melting pot, but at the same time in Brazil they had, and I think they still do, they have sort of a racial hierarchy. But I think that goes on appearance rather than genetics, because I think most people in Brazil are a little mixed, so they go by what you look like. So I heard they call it colorism in Brazil. It's really crazy. Sargon made a video about that. That was interesting. Summer Love 217 says, I look like what people seem to consider Swedish. People do ask me if I'm a Swede. Interesting. Free Tanker says, I'm Celtic, Scandinavian, and African according to DNA result. Well, according to DNA, I'm 41.4% Scandinavian and 40.8% Finnish, and a little British, Irish, and some other stuff. Joel Aldrich says, sorry I was late. I watch the replay sometimes when not live. Your discussions are insightful. Oh, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. Uh, Summer Love 217 says, yes, farmer from area close to Norway. Far from greater Stockholm area. Oh, we could be related through any of these lines. I have ancestry in both of these areas. Wildflower, yes. She talks about her Brazilian heritage. Japanese, French, Portuguese, mostly Afro-Brazilian though, called Pardo. Uh, Michael St. George says, I hope your site is growing. I donated what I thought was $10 US in kroners, but I think that it turned out to be only about $1.50. Sorry about that. Well, in any case, Michael St. George, thank you for your kind words. Thank you for the donation. Hey, feel free to send another donation if you like. You can send a super chat or you can send through PayPal or whatever. But I'm grateful for that donation too. So don't no worries. I'm happy about that. And well, before I close, because I'm about to close now, but before I do that, I would like to thank everyone who hanged out with me in this live stream today. Remember that Saturdays is a given. The other times of the week they might differ. Usually I aim at Tuesday and maybe Thursday, but Saturday that's a given unless I'm in an airplane uh, or a ferry or somewhere I really can't do it. But Saturday evening is always a given. I list the times on my website. I think you know by now. I'll respond to something in here. Uh, Michael St. George says, can you tell US dollars 10, 20, and 50 in kroners? Yes. I'll tell you in Norwegian krone because I assume that's what you see if you go to my PayPal link. So let's do it that way. I'll Google to see what it says. 10 US dollars to NOK. $10 equals 78 kroner. So 20 would equal 156 and 50 would be, let's see. $50 is 392 kroner. So I'll write it in the chat too for Michael St. George and whoever else might be interested. So 10 US dollars equals 78 Norwegian kroner. We can have it in Swedish too. Let's see. 82 Swedish kroner. 20 US dollars equals 156 Norwegian. 160 Swedish. 40 US dollars equals 392 Norwegian. 400 Swedish. So once that has been addressed, okay. So since you asked Michael St. George and anyone else in here, I'll also post my PayPal link. My Patreon and my website. And even though I see that there's a very interesting discussion going on in the chat, so maybe I will do a video about that. Maybe next week we'll see. But I think kind of had my 1.5 hour now. That's what I'm aiming for. So thank you all for hanging out with me. Thank you for the discussion. Even the things I disagree with. Thank you all. Thank you for donations, for everything. And until next time, have a nice day and God bless.